John always had big dreams. Ever since he was a kid, he wanted to do something great. He wasn't sure how, but he knew he wanted to make a difference. He lived in a small town where most people stayed in the same place their whole lives. They worked regular jobs, followed the same routines, and never aimed too high. But John was different. He wanted more. At school, he talked about his dreams. He wanted to be successful. He worked to achieve something bigger than what people expected from him. Some of his classmates laughed, others rolled their eyes. Teachers smiled but told him to be realistic. He didn't understand why no one believed in him. He worked hard in school. He loved learning. He paid attention in class while others joked around. He read books outside of school, always looking for new ideas. But instead of encouragement, he got doubt. People like us don't make it big. Stop dreaming, be practical. You'll never get there. He heard these words almost every day. Even when he ignored them, they stuck in his mind. Some days he felt strong. He believed in himself. Other days he questioned everything. Maybe they were right. Maybe he was dreaming too big. But deep down, he couldn't let go of his dreams. He knew he had to try. No matter what people said, no matter how much they laughed, he would prove them wrong. He just didn't know how yet. John kept pushing forward, but every day felt like a battle. At school, he sat in the front row, eager to learn. But no matter how hard he tried, he felt invisible. Some teachers only paid attention to the students they expected to succeed. Others looked at him with pity, as if they had already decided his future. He worked harder than most of his classmates, but it didn't seem to matter. One day, in history class, the teacher asked students what they wanted to do in the future. Some said they wanted to be doctors, lawyers, or business owners. The teacher nodded, encouraging them. When it was John's turn, he stood up confidently. I want to be successful. I want to change the world. The room fell silent for a second. Then, someone snickered. Another student whispered, Yeah, right. The teacher gave a small smile but sighed. That's nice, but let's talk about something more practical. What kind of job do you really want? The words stung. This is what I really want, he said. A few students laughed. Someone muttered, Dreams don't pay bills. He sat back down, feeling small. At home, things weren't much better. His family loved him, but they didn't always understand. Just focus on getting a stable job, his father said. Dreams are nice, but you need to be realistic. His mother looked worried. I just don't want you to be disappointed, she said softly. Disappointment. That's what everyone expected from him, but he refused to accept that. Late at night, he stayed up reading, studying, and learning new things. He looked up stories of people who had made it despite the odds. He wrote down his goals, even when they felt impossible. Deep down, he knew the truth. No one was going to believe in him until he succeeded. And that meant he had to keep going, no matter what. John had learned to ignore the whispers and side comments. But one day, things went too far. It happened during English class. The teacher gave an assignment. Write about your biggest dream and share it with the class. John took it seriously. He stayed up late writing, pouring his heart into every word. He described his vision, how he wanted to rise above expectations, how he wanted to prove that hard work and determination could break any barrier. The next day, students read their essays one by one. Some wanted to be doctors, others wanted to be athletes or musicians. Each time, the teacher nodded approvingly. Then it was John's turn. He stood up and began reading. I want to do something great. I want to inspire people and change the world. I know it won't be easy, but I believe hard work can make anything possible. Before he could finish, someone in the back snickered. Another student muttered, Here we go again. Then came the laughter. It started with just a few voices but quickly spread. Even students who hadn't been paying attention joined in. The teacher sighed and shook her head. All right, settle down. But she wasn't looking at them. She was looking at John. This is a nice dream, but let's focus on realistic goals. You need something achievable. His hands tightened around the paper. But this is achievable. A boy in the front row smirked. Come on, man. You really think you're gonna make it? Look around. People like us don't get that far. More laughter. A girl whispered, He's delusional. John felt his face burn. He wanted to argue, but his throat tightened. He forced himself to stay still, to keep his emotions in check. The teacher gave him a pitying look. Let's move on. He sat down, staring at his desk, his essay still in his hands. The words that had once felt powerful now looked small and meaningless. For the rest of the day, the laughter followed him. In the hallways, at lunch, even as he walked home, their voices echoed in his head. That night, he lay in bed, staring at the ceiling. For the first time, he wondered if maybe they were right. But deep down, something told him this wasn't the end. John felt humiliated. The laughter, the stares, the whispers, they stayed in his head for days. Every time he thought about his dream, he heard their voices telling him it was impossible. But something inside him refused to let go. One night, instead of feeling sorry for himself, he made a decision. He was done waiting for people to believe in him. He would prove them wrong. He started working harder than ever. While his classmates played video games or hung out after school, he stayed behind in the library. He read books on success, discipline, and resilience. He watched interviews of people who had defied the odds. He studied their journeys, taking notes on every struggle and every breakthrough. At home, he set a strict routine. No more wasting time. Every hour counted. He practiced skills, studied topics outside of school, and found ways to improve himself. Still, the doubts didn't disappear. The next time he raised his hand in class, the teacher barely acknowledged him. The next time he mentioned his dreams, someone rolled their eyes, but he didn't care anymore. Then something unexpected happened. One of his teachers, one who had always stayed quiet while others mocked him, pulled him aside after class. "I see how hard you're working," the teacher said. "Don't let them stop you. You have something special." It was the first time anyone in school had encouraged him. That one moment changed everything. For the first time, he wasn't completely alone. Someone believed in him. He started reaching out, looking for people who could help him grow. He found online communities of ambitious people, read about mentors who had helped others succeed, and even emailed professionals for advice. Most ignored him, but a few responded. One person, a successful entrepreneur, wrote back, "Keep pushing. Your hard work will pay off." It was just a few words, but it meant everything. From that moment, there was no turning back. He wasn't just chasing a dream anymore. He was building something real. And no amount of laughter or doubt was going to stop him. John kept pushing forward no matter what people said. The late nights, the extra hours, the sacrifices, it all started adding up. He was getting better, smarter, more disciplined. Then one day, something happened. A school competition was announced. It was related to something he had been studying, maybe a debate, a business pitch, a science fair, or an essay contest. At first he hesitated. He knew how people would react if he joined. More laughter, more mockery. But then he remembered why he started. So he signed up. His classmates laughed when they saw his name on the list. "He really thinks he's gonna win?" someone said. "This should be funny." John ignored them. He spent every free moment preparing. While others treated it like a joke, he took it seriously. He practiced, researched, improved his work over and over again. When the competition day arrived, he was ready. He stood in front of the judges, heart pounding, and gave it his all. His voice was steady, his words were clear, his ideas were strong. For the first time, people were actually listening. When the results came in, he couldn't believe it. He won. Silence filled the room as his name was announced. The same students who had mocked him just days ago sat in shock. Some whispered in disbelief, others just stared. He walked up to receive his award, his hands shaking. He had done it. For the first time, the world saw what he was capable of. Later that day, a few classmates approached him. "Hey man, that was actually impressive," one of them admitted. Another nodded. "Yeah, I didn't think you'd win, but you did." It wasn't a full apology, but it was something. That night he sat on his bed holding the award in his hands. It wasn't about the trophy. It was about what it represented. He had taken the first step. This was just the beginning. And he wasn't stopping now. Winning the competition gave John a new kind of energy. He had proven that he was capable, that his dreams weren't ridiculous, that he could succeed. But life wasn't done testing him. A new challenge appeared, one even harder than before. Maybe it was a financial problem. Maybe a family issue. Maybe another competition or a huge opportunity that required more than he had. Whatever it was, it hit him hard. Doubt started creeping back in. The old voices returned. "You got lucky once. That doesn't mean you'll make it." Even his biggest supporters started to hesitate. His teacher, the one who had encouraged him, now looked concerned. "Are you sure you can handle this?" He wasn't sure. For the first time in a long time, fear crept in. What if he failed? What if he proved the doubters right? He thought about quitting. Maybe life would be easier if he just followed what everyone else was doing. But then he remembered something. The laughter, the humiliation, the way people had dismissed him. And he remembered how it felt to win, to prove them wrong. That night, he made a decision. He wasn't going to let this stop him. He worked harder than ever before. He searched for solutions, reached out for help, and refused to give up. Even when things seemed impossible, he kept moving forward. Days turned into weeks. Weeks turned into months. And then, after all the struggle, after all the sleepless nights, he broke through. Maybe he got a scholarship, maybe he started a business, maybe he achieved something that no one from his town had ever done before. Whatever it was, it changed everything. The same people who once mocked him now watched in silence. Some still doubted him. Some acted like they had supported him all along. But none of that mattered. Because John knew the truth. He had faced his biggest challenge yet, and he had won. And now, there was nothing in the world that could stop him. John had spent years proving himself. Every challenge, every setback, every doubt, he had faced them all and pushed through. Then one day, everything changed. It wasn't just another small success. This was something bigger. Maybe it was a life-changing opportunity, a major award, or recognition from someone important. Whatever it was, it proved once and for all, he had made it. The news spread fast. His name was everywhere. People who once ignored him now wanted to talk to him. The same classmates who had laughed at him were now congratulating him. "Man, I always knew you could do it," someone said. "Remember us when you're famous," another joked. It was strange. These were the same people who once mocked him, who told him his dreams were impossible. But he didn't feel anger. He didn't need revenge. He had already won. His old teachers looked at him differently now. Some tried to take credit. "I always saw his potential," one of them said, even though they had doubted him before. But there was one person he wanted to see the most. His mentor, the teacher who had encouraged him when no one else did. When they met, the teacher smiled. "I told you that you had something special." John nodded. "Thank you. You were one of the only ones who believed in me." The teacher shook their head. "No, you believed in yourself. That's what made the difference." And that was the truth. Looking back, he realized that all the doubt, all the mockery, all the struggles, they didn't break him. They made him stronger. Because the only opinion that had ever really mattered was his own. And now the world finally saw what he had known all along. He was never just a dreamer. He was unstoppable.